Now, Celia, you're up. Celia is here representing the. You gotta tell me. You come and tell us.
I'll do it
You
myself.
come and tell us. Then I won't mess it up.
A
good welcome, Celia.
Hi, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I love this microphone because I can talk. Okay. I'm Celia Bevere. I'm Executive Director of the Border Community Alliance. We're a 13-year-old nonprofit based in Tubac, Arizona. How many have heard of Border Community Alliance before? Oh, great. Okay, so we are not strangers. We actually have one of our board members here today, Connie, in the back. So, and we have some of our members. I know Pam and Gary. Is anybody else here a BCA member? Oh yeah, we have several. Wonderful. And Susie's back there somewhere hiding. There she is, who works for us. So anyway, I'm glad we are familiar faces to most of you, it seems like. So I'm going to do, my presentation is we're going to start out, since a big part of our mission is to bridge the border and create cross-border community, and we try to do that in 3 ways, which is through educational programming, cultural exchange, and social investment. So I'm going to walk through those 3 more toward the second part of my presentation. So I'm going to start out, since a big part of our mission is to change the narratives of the borderlands that are often misconstrued or just completely false. And especially in regards to Mexico, I'm going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the myths and realities of Mexico in particular in terms of sort of popular portrayal of that country. And then we'll move into more the programs of Border Community Alliance. So just real quick, I just wanted to say our vision statement, La Frontera is a place of discovery and collaboration. Again, a lot of times the borderlands is portrayed in the media as like a negative place. Whether it's that we're overrun by migrants or we're with Mexico here or whatever, there's just a lot of misconceptions. So that's a much more positive image of the borderlands. So we're going to go into about 4 or 5 different myths about Mexico, and we'll just have data on each of those. So I think this is a pretty popular myth still. Maybe not here so much, but in a lot of the country, which is that Mexico needs us, but that we don't need Mexico, basically. And that is really untrue, because both imports and exports now, Mexico is our top trading partner. I think a lot of people don't know that. They think it's China, or they think it's Canada. So in 2023, actually, Mexico became the biggest trading partner in terms of our imports our imports in total. And then, okay, so this just kind of talks about that in more detail. That's when Mexico surpassed China, and also Canada. So this just has a little bit of data about that. I'm not going to read all these slides, but you can just kind of see the numbers in terms of where Mexico stands. So then in November 2025, so just really about 7 months ago, Mexico is now for the first time our main trading partner in terms of buying U.S. goods. So in terms of it now, it's our biggest exporter and our biggest importer. So I just think that's really important to know, because again, I don't think a lot of people know that. And we work with them in a lot of different areas. This slide talks about how Mexico has a growing middle class, and so it explains the reason why they are our biggest exporter and importer, because of their growing middle class and their growing economic clout then. I'm going to kind of go back and forth in the economic piece with the global picture, but also Nogales, since Nogales is right here. And Nogales is just such an important port of entry that people don't realize. This slide is actually a couple years old, but I left it in here because it has the names of a lot of the maquiladoras, the factories in Nogales, Sonora. There's over 100 factories, international factories, that are US companies or Australian or European or Canadian, and they're just a backbone of the Nogales economy as well as the border economy. This is just another statistic that Mexico remains the second largest source of foreign crude oil to the United States, and then a top destination for our petroleum exports and natural gas. And then this just talks about the commerce between the U.S. and Mexico of motor vehicle parts, which, if you have a car, those parts and machinery in that car have probably gone back and forth the border about 10 times, which is why the whole tariff issue is so complicated. Electronic components, chemicals, computer equipment, and then we're going to go into agriculture in a minute. So now we're going to go into the agricultural piece of it. I think hopefully most people know that Nogales is an incredibly important port for produce, especially. The estimate is that 50% of the produce that we consume comes through in those 2 months, January, February, comes through the Nogales port of entry. So there's an underlying myth that Mexico is a poor country, and yes, it's, I would say, more poor than the United States, but it has a very big economy, 15th largest in the world, and it's number 5th in Latin America, and again, a growing middle class. And this goes into tourism, which, as we know, is a big business in all countries, and I believe there's a myth out there that the United States doesn't need Mexico tourism, they just need us, and Mexico is the top U.S. tourist destination. And we found this really during COVID, when Mexican nationals were not allowed to cross the land border. They can only fly in, so many of them did not come in. They spend $1 billion each year just in Tucson.
Wow.
And Visit Tucson has offices throughout Mexico, the tourism office trying to get Mexicans to come here. So it's a huge business, and Mexicans travel beyond Arizona. So they are very important for our tourist economy, as are many other countries, and many of them are not coming here right now. So Mexico is actually more important than ever, because Mexicans tend to come here still, even though the visa issues and all that are affecting them as well. This goes back to Nogales, Ambos Nogales. So the numbers are just staggering with the port of entry, and they are planning on expanding the Mariposa port of entry over the next few years, and also the Decancini port of entry, because a lot of it because of the commercial traffic. But this is northbound traffic, so this is U.S. data. It just shows the millions of pedestrians, millions of vehicle crossings, truck crossings, and also train crossings. So in these, from what I understand by the Port Authority folks, these go up by like 20,000 every year. I mean, it continues to increase. This is just a little comparison between Ambos Nogales. So Nogales, Sonora is a growing city, estimated to be about 400,000 now. And Nogales, Arizona has actually been shrinking, so it's probably like 25 or 30,000 right now. But both of those, the town and that city, are just still very integrally bound to each other. There's a lot of cross-border arts and culture. We'll go into that a little bit later, and obviously friends and family that are crossing on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. This is just stating there's a 2,000-mile border. Every day, hundreds of thousands of people on both sides cross to work, live, or visit close relatives and friends. This is another myth, that Mexico is a dangerous country. I mean, you're going to hear about this all the time, right? That's part of the mythology about rapists and murderers coming into the country, that all these countries that they're coming from are dangerous. The reality is that Mexico is a very safe country. There's, on the State Department website, there's about 4 states, mainly in southern Mexico, like Guerrero, that are considered, like, don't go there, don't travel. Travel is forbidden by the State Department. And those you would definitely have to be careful and think carefully. But most of the, I think there's 30 states, 30 or 32 in Mexico. Most of them are very safe, just like the U.S. You know, you wouldn't go to parts of Phoenix at night. You wouldn't go to parts of Chicago at night. Probably wouldn't go to parts of Tucson at night. But, you know, there's just different things you have to be careful about. And the State Department does somewhat of a job with that, but it tends to be overly cautious because they're worried about their embassy employees. So they're thinking of it in that way. But generally, Mexico is a wonderful, beautiful country, and BCA provides a lot of opportunities to visit Mexico, which we'll go into. Another thing, there's kind of a myth about Mexico and Latin America that everybody's having a lot of children, and you know it's a growing population, but it's not. It's a decreasing population. Their birth rate is roughly the same as ours, so they're having, just like U.S. Residents are having less and less children for all sorts of different reasons. So are Mexican families. And this is just a few facts about just the amount of Americans that live in Mexico. So 1.6 million citizens live, I would say, quote unquote, full time in Mexico. And then, of course, there's many of us that visit and live there for parts of the year. And then conversely, about 37.4 million people of Mexican origin are in the U.S., which represents 60% of the Hispanic population. And then there's the other groups, like the Puerto Ricans, which are second. So anyway, we know that there's a lot of our Mexican neighbors have come to live here over time and start families. This I actually just saw on the State Department website, which I just thought was interesting because I thought it was interesting that it was there, and I also thought it was just a very good summary of the Mexico-U.S. relationship. You know, our shared history, our deep cultural ties, diplomatic relations. So I'm not going to read through all this, but I think it's a very good summary of our relationship. So we went through a few of those myths and the realities, the facts, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what BCA does to address those myths in terms of education and in other ways. So the education piece of it, we have forums and tours that we do. Our high season is October through March, you know, because of the snowbird population, and it gets too hot to do tours in the summer and that type of thing. So we have Borderlands tours and forums generally from October through March. We have a Borderlands Literature and Film Circle, which meets online monthly, where we interview a Borderland author or film producer. We have Breakfast at the Border events a couple times a year. And our other online program is our Spanish classes. And they are highly regarded. Is anybody here taking a Spanish class? Okay. With BCA. They are, we kind of put them online during COVID, and then we kept them that way because we have a lot of instructors from Mexico and Costa Rica and places in Latin America. This is just a flyer from our Spanish classes will start in the fall, and we'll have information on that on our website in July. I'm just flashing up here a couple of just to give you an idea of the programs that we have. We don't have a lot of our fall, winter flyers ready yet, so some of these are in the past, but this is just to kind of give you an idea of sort of the variety of programming that we have. You all have had Allison Ball, I think, right? Yeah, she's really good. This is for our Borderlands and Literature and Film Circle, and I should say that much of our programming is free. We do try to, we generally ask for donations. Obviously, most of our tours we have to charge for because we have costs associated with those, but we do try to keep, for most of our forums and things like that, we try to keep those free. This is our next Borderlands Literature and Film Circle event in July, which is a book on rock archaeology and indigenous perspectives in archaeology. So this is coming up in July. And then the next piece of our mission is cultural exchange, and that is cross-border tours, And we have day tours and multi-day tours, which I'll talk about. We go to different nonprofits in Sonora. We do offer private tours for groups. So if your group is interested in a private tour, we have our public tours, but we're always willing to set up a private tour. And we have our internship program. So these are the tours that are coming up. Our big multi-day tours, we usually do 3 or 4 a year, and this year we're doing Real Sonora again. Copper Canyon is our new tour, and Kino Bay, which our Kino Bay tour we've done for the past several years, and it's pretty popular. And then our day tours, we have quite a few Nogales Sonora tours. I'll go into that in a minute. And then we used to do a Magdalena day tour as well. So this is our upcoming, all these flyers, or not all of them, but most of them are in the back on the table. So you're welcome to pick up information. And then starting July 6th, all these will be on our website and available for registration. So we're just using the next week or so to get everything up on the website. This is Kino Bay. This tour we do in partnership with Prescott College Environmental Studies Center. They've had a center down there for about 30 years. And it focuses on the ecology down there, the indigenous peoples. And you go out on a boat one day, and then the other 2, I think you're on land. But it's a great tour. These are just pictures from last year's Kino Bay tour. Copper Canyon is our new tour that we're doing in partnership with a company out of Phoenix. And so that's going to be very exciting. And this is a flyer from last year's Magdalena tour. But how many of you all have been to Magdalena? Yeah, it's a wonderful Pueblo, Mexico, in about, I guess it's about an hour and a half from the border. It's a beautiful little village. So I would highly recommend this day tour. These are pictures from our Magdalena tour last year. They have a beautiful municipal building in Magdalena that has the murals of the history of Mexico. So that's what this is. Okay, and then I'm going to just talk specifically about Nogales, Sonora, because that's kind of our intro. I think a lot of people here, they go to the dentist, or maybe they go to La Roca, but they don't generally go much beyond that because it's a big city, and if you're not familiar with it, you might be a little nervous about that. So we have a variety of tours to bring people across in Nogales, Sonora. This is a brand new tour that we're doing that we're really excited about. It's a public art mural tour in Nogales, Sonora. We'll drive around and see and stop at most of them. Some we can't because of traffic, and then we'll have lunch over there. So this is a brand new tour. We already do a public art tour in Nogales, Arizona, which is a walking tour. This is a driving tour. And this is our what we call our social investment tour. So I'll talk about social investment at the end because that's the last prong of our mission. But our social investment tour is basically visiting a couple of the nonprofits that we do social investment work in, meaning we help give funding, and we help provide volunteers, and we get people involved in the nonprofits on the other side, and just interested in what they're doing. So this is the day tour that we offer basically once a month, and we also do private. We also offer this as a private tour. This is just pictures of that tour. Seems to be, hang on. All of a sudden my computer froze. I don't know why. Okay. Okay. We're going through the slides here.
May I ask where these pictures are taken?
Nogales, Sonora. Oh, you mean, I'm sorry, which places? Yeah. So this one is by the wall, obviously. This one's at the place that we have lunch, Burrito House in Nogales, Sonora. This is the wall there. This is a migrant shelter called Casa de la Misericordia. that we are pretty well connected with. They have migrants that are pretty much trapped there right now because the border is closed for asylum. So they have about 55 people there right now that are basically trapped there. So we visit there, and this is La Roca restaurant. Thank you for asking. So the last part of our mission is social investment, and we have channeled, we're proud to say, over $750,000 to nonprofits in Nogales, Sonora primarily. We do work a little bit with nonprofits in Hermosillo. We work with a community foundation on the other side who vets all the nonprofits, and just like a community foundation here would, just to make sure they're all running properly and have their finances in order. And if you give a tax deductible donation through, if you give a donation through BCA, it's tax deductible, but then we channel it to those nonprofits. So then American donors can give give money to Mexican nonprofits and get a tax donation. And social investment, we think of it as a little different than regular, like a charity donation, because it's a long-term commitment to an organization or a project, or it's a partnership. So we have a social investment commitment to Nogales, Sonora, basically. And these are just some examples of the nonprofits we work with. This is a sewing co-op, the Guadalupe Sewing Co-op, that teaches women skills, sewing skills and entrepreneurial skills. And we've been working with them for about 15 years. This is an orchestra. This is one of our newest. There's a neighborhood in Nogales called La Mesa, which is pretty far south, and it's a very difficult neighborhood. And a priest there started an orchestra for these kids, and it's really just blossomed over the last couple of years. He even raised enough money for them to go play for the Pope before he died, the previous Pope. And now he's like giving scholarships, and so it basically keeps them off the streets, keeps them out of trouble. People kind of keep an eye on these kids. So I think it's about maybe 50 kids now, and then they're trying to open it to kids in other neighborhoods. There's a little mariachi player in training there. And then this is our longest running partnership with Arsovo. I think some of you have been there on our tour. It's a wheelchair and prosthetic factory, and they also do work with hearing aids. So in Mexico, if you have a leg amputated for whatever reason, diabetes or other health reasons, they have people that fall off the train, La Bestia, and get their legs. But the medical reality is in Mexico is that you don't get that. Even if you have insurance, you don't get it. So a lot of people can't afford the prosthetics, so they make homemade prosthetics, which are right here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's one of them, I think it's the one up there, that's like a milk carton. They basically use like a plastic milk carton and made it into it. So anyway, they come to this place and they have people that are making these prosthetics and also wheelchairs, and they give it to people affordably. So it's basically like pay whatever you can. They work a lot with the University of Arizona, with the Hanger Clinic, so they have a lot of good, it's a great Mexico-U.S. cross-border partnership. And you go see this on our tour, on our social investment tour. It's a wonderful place. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is our intern program. We have a Borderland Ambassador internship program where we have a very competitive process of college age students. They don't have to be in college, but college age, applying for this program. And we bring in 6 students every summer. They're here right now. They just got here last week, and they live in a house in Nogales, Arizona. And then they cross the border a couple times a week and do service learning projects in Nogales, Sonora. This year they're doing them at Casa de la Misericordia and Voices of the Border, which is another organization that provides apartments for migrants that are trapped in Nogales. And many of those people can't get out of their houses because if they do, they'll be basically a coyote will find them and try try to get them to cross the desert. So we're trying to keep them safe and keep the kids occupied so that ambassadors are working with them. So they're here for 6 weeks, and they do final presentations at the end of their time here. They do one here in Green Valley on July 27th at the United Methodist Church, and then they'll do it again in Tubac on July 31st. And I know for the people that have been in here and have gone to see them, you know that they're very inspirational. Kind of our hope is these young people that are learning about the border, and then hopefully we'll go back to their communities and be ambassadors, as we encourage everybody to do that comes here and visits and then goes back somewhere, you know, to be ambassadors for what's really happening here, and the rich history and the culture and the cross-border nature of our community. So that's an important program for us, that youth program. So that's all of my presentation today. Happy to take questions. Does anybody have a question? Oh, I think he's going to bring you a microphone now, right?
Wait for the mic.
Right here.
Do you have a work site or a building in Tubac that is open to the public?
There's one down there for border stuff.
You're probably talking about our building. Yeah, our office is right next, it's on Burrell Street, so it's right next to the Tubac Historical Society, right across the street from the Tubac Presidio.
Yeah.
So that is our office, if you're talking about
I
that.
think that must
Yeah.
be very nice.
We have somewhat limited hours in the summer, so we're there on Wednesdays right now, and then by appointment. But yeah, but in the fall, winter, we're open more. But that is our space. Yes.
From what area do the students for the intern program come from?
Let's see, this year we have from, I think, 6 different states, so all over. I mean, every year it's different. Okay, sometimes we get them from Arizona, sometimes we get them from other countries, but this year I think it's, I don't know if I will remember, but like Indiana, Georgia, Virginia, yeah, from all over. Yeah, I mean, the only main requirement is that they know Spanish on at least an intermediate level, because they're going to be speaking and listening to a lot of Spanish. Yeah.
I have one question and one comment. The question is, how is Trump's tariffs affecting things for you?
For us, BCA, I wouldn't say they're affecting us a lot, but they are affecting people in Nogales that are having to deal with that. We had a border economics forum a few months ago, and the gentleman there that spoke that deals with the tariffs, like he's actually the one that has to implement the tariffs. He said even in, I think when they started, they had like 3 days of tariffs and then Trump canceled them. He said just those 3 days caused so much chaos. And now, you know, now they're going back and trying to get refunds of some of those tariffs, because Trump has canceled some of the Mexico tariffs, not all of them, but some of them. So, because I do think Scheinbaum has done a pretty good job. And also I think Trump does know the economic cloud, or some of the people around him do. So I think those tariffs have been mitigated somewhat. So it's caused a huge amount of chaos. I mean, I was amazed by just how a few days of tariffs and then canceling them just caused, you know, all sorts of administrative havoc. And now with the Supreme Court ruling, having to go back and do refunds. So, yeah.
A comment that people might not be aware of. I was talking to a friend of mine this morning who's Hispanic, and he told me that the big impact is on farms, because the farms can't get the workers to work. So people that produce tomatoes, whatever they produce, they can't get the workers, and the farms are going out of business.
Got farms here?
Yes.
Yeah, well, yeah,
They're going out of business. So it's going to boost the cost of fresh vegetables and whatever else they produce, and worth knowing that that's one of the impacts of this fiasco. Thank you.
Right. No, I mean, we'll be paying for a $10 head of lettuce, if we're not careful, because, the folks are scared to go out and work in the fields, even if they're already here. And then the border, really is closed for official, especially in light of the Supreme Court ruling yesterday or Thursday. And then people are still migrating through the desert, but that's so risky and harder and harder to do because of all the surveillance. And then of course the putting in the walls, other places. So
I'm not sure why they want to come.
I think if you have to flee your country or your home, you don't want to, but you have to. I know what you're saying, but I'm just saying they don't feel like they have any choice. And the people that cross through the desert at this time of year, they think it's worth the risk. They think it's worth the risk to die than to, people try to discourage them from doing that, obviously, but I think they're just very
Question here
desperate.
and then one in the back, and then we can come back.
I'm wondering what the availability is for someone to come and speak to small groups who are interested in learning more. I'm in a book club and we're reading The Asylum Seekers, and we would like to know more hands-on what's really going on in our community.
So are you specifically talking about the immigration topic right now and the asylum piece? Yeah, I could definitely refer you to people that could talk about that, because I work with a lot of those people in the U.S. and the Mexico side. So, sure.
I lived in Jalisco 15 years, and there's a couple of things that I see are problematic in trying to look at what imports and exports are from Mexico. So one of the places I lived on Lake Chapala with a ton of berry farms along with other ones, and not one of those companies were Mexican. They were all U.S. companies, and all of it was imported from there. So when they're doing the calculation, how are they doing the calculation from there? That's one thing. The other thing, in the states of Leon and the states of Guanajuato, so the 15 years that I was there, that increasingly there were more and more car companies from the U.S. that were opening up manufacturing places there, and it would be parts, the chassis or something else, that if you went from any of the states and came up through Laredo, you will pass 20 of them coming up back and forth. And so that's the same kind of discussion as how that's calculated with increased trade. And the other thing is the tariff issue. Right. Yeah, I don't know exactly how those numbers are created, and it just gets so messy, right? Because of the back and forth nature of pretty much every single thing that we use. I went to a maquiladora that they made the emergency doors on an airplane. And the guy there was telling me, how much the tariff thing had affected him, just, the chaos that caused, and just the back and forth that he said, they'll make a part of the door there, and then they send it back, and then they do something, and so the numbers are probably, a little messy. So. Okay.
Basically, what I have is comments. American corporations have been down in Mexico and other South American countries for generations, investing in bananas and everything under the sun, okay? And of course, our farmers and ranchers just couldn't do without cheap Mexican labor that they were very glad to bring over the border. And now we're in a situation where we Americans don't understand desperation. Nobody is going to make a trip over the desert to get into this country unless they are totally desperate.
Yeah, there's still, I don't know, I think that the vision of the American dream has definitely gone down for folks that are here. But for folks that aren't here, it's, even if they know the American dream might not be real, it has been, and that might now be changing, but it has been a beacon of asylum, obviously, and economic opportunity. So And the unfortunate thing is that so many of the, the economics of the migrant trade, which I've heard is now bigger than the drug trade in terms of or at least it was until this Trump administration, the profit is so huge that the coyotes just tell all sorts of lies. And yeah, they say, you walk across the border and in an hour you're in Phoenix,
And they've got customers here.
Right, exactly. And then the trip through Mexico is just so dangerous it's not dangerous for us, but it's dangerous for migrants because they're gonna try to make them, their American family members pay a ransom for them, and so it's just so complicated. So the legal pathways to getting them here are so important, and now they are pretty much all closed. So
That was going to be one of my questions, is how do you guys interface with those people that you're working with on a regular basis to try and stay there and not use the coyotes to come back?
So we are not an immigration organization, but how we interface with this topic is that we try to support migrant shelters in particularly Nogales, Sonora, but other places too, like Sasa Bay and across from Lukeville, Sonoyta. So that's just part of our mission, is to try to bring resources to those places. So right now, most of the shelters in Mexico, at least on the border, they try to discourage people from crossing because it's just so dangerous, and also probably pretty low chance of success. But people are still crossing. I mean, the Samaritans in this room here will tell you that they're still seeing food eaten and all that. So I think our BCA's role is to support whatever the administration, to support those shelters that aren't shutting down. I mean, I was a little bit concerned that the Casa de la Misericordia would be shutting down, but they're committed to stay open. I mean, I think they're just hoping that things will change. These people have no place to go. There is a big push to try to settle some people in Nogales, Sonora, and other border towns, at least right now, because so they can get jobs and they can, their kids can go to school and that type of thing. So we're just supporting those programs and whatever they need to do through our cross-border partnership and in terms of funding and volunteers. And also I just think bringing people there. I mean, migrants are often thought of as a number, right? And they're considered aliens by this administration. So, when you go to a shelter and you see these people and you hear their stories and you see the moms and the kids and the dads and, they're just trying to, and you hear their stories of what they escaped from. I think that can change your mindset.
Thank you
possibly.
for bringing the human side into that, yes.
Exactly, the human side, yeah. Any more questions? Yeah.
Yes, I'm originally from Missouri. We recently had ICE raids in small towns in Missouri. And I have Trump Republicans in my family. And I keep hearing that it doesn't cost them anything to become U.S. citizens. How do you, how can I assist in educating them as to the cost to become American citizens? Because Trump just increased that dollar amount.
Right. Well, I mean, even before Trump, there's always been a cost for citizenship. I mean, there's costs every step of the way. Asylum fee, work permit, green card, which would come before citizenship. So every single one of those has a cost. So I'm not quite sure where that information comes from. But and also, it's always been difficult, taken many years and you have to wait in line and not everybody qualifies. It's not like you can just show up in this country and apply for citizenship. So, but I mean, I think the difference now is that it's like they're just making it impossible, meaning the costs are going up, but they're just like stopping everything, whether it be asylum applications or green card applications or citizenship applications. They're just basically just stopping it. So, I mean, a big part of the rhetoric in the last election was, to go through the legal pathways and first of all, those legal pathways are really difficult to do, and you have to have money. But then also now, like right now, those legal pathways are closed. So you can't make that argument anymore. And there are also people in this country that were going the legal pathway are being deported. So, yeah.
I've been in immigration court for the last several months. Go online and check out what this administration is doing in an immigration court. To file an asylum, file for asylum, it used to be $100, $200 or something, and you had 30 days. They've changed it to over $1,000, and you have 2 weeks. You can't find a lawyer in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's the other thing. That's another thing that we helped supported in the migrant shelters and when people were crossing is legal assistance, because they would bring lawyers over to Mexico to work with them to talk about their story and their, what their, if they had a credible case for asylum. And you're right, the fees have gone up, and then the other thing they've done is they've taken away the work permits from people that have them legitimately. And I think you used to be able to have a work permit for 5 years, and now it's 1.5 years. And then you have to reapply, and then they might not give it to you. So, yeah, and so I think what they're doing by that, and then of course they're detaining people, but they're trying to make people self-deport, is what they're trying to do by making it just so difficult. But if you don't have a lawyer, that's even harder. Having a lawyer is almost critical, and there's just not enough immigration attorneys. So, okay.
Wonderful.
Pleasure.
All right, thank you. So from a personal point of view, I've lived here now in Green Valley for 23 years. And the first several years, it was so fun to take visitors, family, friends across the border to Nogales, down Obregon. All the stores. And there was a department store there. It was so wonderful. You walked in, the perfume was in the front, and lingerie was upstairs, and downstairs were the kids' clothes. It was absolutely fantastic.
It was, yes.
And then, of course, the financial crisis kind of put a kibosh, but then COVID killed it.
Killed it.
We used to go to 2 or 3 of my girlfriends, we went down and went to Elvira's, actually. In Mexico, in Nogales. And when you walk in, you sit down, they give you a shot of tequila without asking, and there's no additional cost to it. Well, then, of course, you have a margarita or 2. So we're stumbling down Obregon, and this gentleman comes up selling chewing gum. He said, "Would you like to buy chewing gum?" "Oh, no, we're fine." "No, you're not. You probably should buy some gum." So we did. Anyhow, it was a wonderful, wonderful time, and now it's changed. We go for cleaning our teeth, and that's about it.
There's still a lot of wonderful things over there. You just have to maybe look a little harder and go beyond the border.
Yeah. There was a wonderful fabric shop. Did you ever go to the fabric shop in Nogales?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. So anyhow, we love going across the border, and hopefully someday we could have fun doing it again. So thank you, Celia. It was wonderful. Wonderful. See you next Saturday for campings.